Hello again. This is Dr. Deborah with the How to Love movement. I talked a bit earlier this week or last week about the posture of both and. That is not thinking something has to be either or, that both things can be right or true. And I suggested that that was going to be very difficult for a lot of people to adjust to because we're used to thinking things are, up or down, right or left, right or wrong, true or not true, and not considering the context of people's lives when we think like that, or when we talk like that, or when we live that way. And quite honestly, I also suggested that that is why we keep arguing about things, because somebody has to be wrong and somebody has to be right. And that, can you see how that can make it difficult to be in a relationship with someone? Because nobody is going to have a perfect one-to-one agreement with anybody else all the time. Sometimes you're going to have different opinions about it. And and unless you are willing to spend your life trying to figure out how you can be right, um, you might want to start thinking and changing how you look at it, how you consider what is right and what is wrong, or how you consider what other people have to offer when it's different from what you think. As I hear myself saying this, I'm thinking about the our need to be right, and our need to have somebody else be wrong. I think both of those things go hand in hand. We not only want to be right, but we want to make sure that the other person is wrong. We want to prove them wrong. And then my question is, to what end? And then what? You get to be right, they get to be wrong, and then what? Most important? I'm at the place in my life where I'm saying, what really matters? So, is it really that important to you that the other person is wrong and you're right? And if it is, why? And my other question is, what value are you placing on that person if you live your life in relationship with them trying to prove that they're wrong about everything? You know how there are some people, no matter what you say, they disagree, or they got another fact to make you seem like you don't know what you're talking about, or that they're right. What is that about? What? And now you have to ask yourself those questions. I mean, I'm posing the question because I'm my thing is coming between you and somebody that you're in a relationship with. That's why I'm saying it, because it's divisive. And of course, yeah, no, nobody agrees on everything, but still it's divisive if you just have to be right and they just have to be wrong. And my thing is, and then what? And then what? Then what happens? What does it do for you? What does it do to them? What does it do to the relationship? And this either or way of thinking. And so to begin to think about that you both could be right, then my question would be, to what end is that? How does that play out? Is that a good thing? And if it is, what is that? What could that be? Well, for me, it's harmonious. For me, it is thoughtful. It is your being able to contemplate, just possibly, that nobody has to be right and nobody has to be wrong. We just have different opinions about how to get to certain place. We have different opinions about how to get where we're going, whether it's solving a problem, or driving across town, or making a cake or a pie. Speaking of that, okay, Thanksgiving just passed, right? And I made a chess pie. If you're from the South, you know what I'm talking about. If you're people from the South, you know what I'm talking about. So I made the chess pie, and first I cooked it too fast. I followed a recipe I hadn't used before, and it sweet is sweet, so it tastes fine, but it didn't gel except for around the edges. And I was like, oh, I gotta do this over. So then I called someone who had just made a chess pie that came out right, and I asked her to give me the recipe. Got the recipe, but then I remembered my recipe back home that I didn't have with me. It called for 3 eggs, and I even think my recipe calls for egg yolks and not egg whites too, not a whole egg. So, but this recipe, the one I used and the one she gave me, both called for 4 eggs. And I was like, that just seems like too much juice. And it's a juicy pie, so it will never gel with all that juice. And I just proved that to myself. So I decided to leave one of the eggs out. And it came out perfectly. It came out perfectly. It was very good, sweet as can be, but it gelled. Now, the person who I got the recipe from, her pie came out right too. She said it was a little juicy in some spots, but for the most part, the pie came out right. And she used 4 eggs. Now I ask you, who's right and who's wrong? Right, exactly. So you don't have to be married, if you will, or stuck on your way of thinking. You can change it up and it can still work. So can you imagine if you're in a relationship with someone and y'all trying to make a decision about something and you have an idea about how things should go and they have an idea about how things could go? How about you put the two together? Quite honestly, that's what I did with my curriculum, with my How to Love book. I brought together two different traditions of how to treat people and how to love people and made them one. And I took both things. I didn't get rid of the spiritual aspect of my life or the therapeutic aspect of my life. I brought them together and created this. And so both and versus either or leads to something new and different and innovative. And if you give that some thought, you can imagine how lots of things got invented because people decided not to limit the possibilities. And that's what both and thinking does. It increases the possibilities. Either or limits not only the possibilities, but limit relationships. And this is about how to love. Can you imagine how your relationships will be so much more harmonious when you stop telling people that they're wrong and start listening for what might be right? This has been Dr. Deborah, LiberationFamilyMinistries.com. Reach out to me. Good night.